I'm conflicted on how to feel about this show and this story in general. This is my first experience with the Sandman, but from what I've seen, I'm not sure if this is an accurate adaptation. I could be wrong, but for a story about Morpheus and these endless beings, it sure does focus a lot on random people who don't matter for the story and are boring to follow. For every scene where some complex idea is explored, or someone gets major characterization, there are multiple scenes of a random person getting half an episode's runtime, if not more. The story would completely halt, so we can watch a 5 to 10 minute music number from an unimportant character. It didn't do anything for the story, it just acted as filler. The story is broken up into two almost completely separate plots that make the story feel kind of rushed in the first half, while more complete in the second. The best parts are interrupted by more filler, aside from the final 2 episodes. But before I get into some of my direct criticisms, I want to talk about what I like, because while there is a lot I had a problem with, there was also a lot of stuff I loved. It's probably why I'm so passionate about my criticisms of this story, because I feel like more good storytelling and character moments were taken away in favor of the weaker moments. Let's start there. The characters. There were some that were amazing to see. The most compelling antagonist, the Corinthian, had so much personality to them. Their plans weren't complex. They didn't need a lot of character moments for the viewer to understand them, but every moment made him have extra layers to his character. A nightmare that wanted to haunt the real world, to get a feeling of what it was like to be human, eventually becoming a serial killer known across the world. Yet despite that characterization, he's very personable and weirdly likable. A large part of that is probably thanks to the performance by Boyd Holbrook, who brings a level of levity to this mass murderer. Another interesting character is obviously Morpheus, and the rest of the Endless. However, I will touch on him later because his character does have some problems for me. Someone who really stole the show for me was Hob Gadling, who embodied what I wanted to see from this story. Seeing these powerful, above-life beings interacting with existence in interesting ways. The story with him and Morpheus is after overhearing his desire to live forever, the Lord of Dreams offers him a kind of deal. Live for the next 100 years, and meet me here, at this tavern, on the same day, then tell me what it's been like. Every 100 years they would repeat their meeting. One meeting after last seeing Hob lose everything he owned and being drowned as a witch, he finds himself successful again, but it's because of the slave trade. Morpheus looks at him with a kind of disgust or disappointment at what he lowered himself to just to get to where he is. They had a real moment where Hob re-examined himself, and with every 100 years, there was always some change that went on with him. Eventually, he and Morpheus even became friends. This kind of storyline was great, and even though it didn't fit into some larger narrative, I didn't care. It was the type of storytelling I wanted out of this show. Death was also a great character, and seeing Morpheus learn about her job was really fascinating. We got to see people die peacefully, and others not so much. But while there were a lot of great moments, this show wasn't able to do that throughout. There's a lot of odd story beats that get a lot of attention, some even for an entire episode. The worst of it was episode 5, 24/7. The entire episode focuses on one of the numerous antagonists in this story, as he uses his newfound power to manipulate a bunch of people inside of a diner. In theory, this idea sounds interesting. After getting what he wants, the power to strip away lies and leave only the truth, the audience gets to see what his world would look like on a smaller scale. The people slowly over time get consumed by this madness-inducing reality, and in the end, it turns into a bloodbath. This scene lasts for almost the entire episode. We learn a lot of useless information about everyone in the diner, see them go into conflicts with everyone else, see them try to reconcile, then new conflicts arise. It feels like they took an entire TV show's worth of a drama script and condensed it into this one episode. I got what the point of this scene was from the first 10 minutes, and after that, nothing interesting really happens. If most of this episode was cut, then nothing would really be missed. Maybe I'm alone on this, but I don't care about the relationship dramas, especially when they only exist in this one episode. Instead of focusing on them, it would have been so much better if we got more time with the villain, the only character here that had some stake in the story. This is like watching a Batman movie but cutting to a random family trying to escape the city for 30 minutes, just for them not to make it. Most of these characters weren't all that deep, so spending so much time with them really made the experience drag. The final confrontation, on the other hand, was the opposite. It was very fast, and didn't spend anywhere near enough time really giving a satisfying conclusion to this conflict. The first arc of this season also left me with a lot of pretty important questions. Why was this random guy able to alter Morpheus's red jewel, an item that had a piece of his power in it? Yet this guy had no powers, and there wasn't any explanation given to how he would have learned to do that. My biggest problems lie with the first half of this season. The first half feels very jumbled, episodic despite the dire main plot going on throughout, and ends very abruptly. If this whole season was based on the story in the second half, with some of the parts with Morpheus regaining his powers thrown in, the season overall would feel a lot stronger to me. One issue that did come up a few times though, was Morpheus's characterization. Sometimes he's wise, and other times his incompetence or failures feel very out of character. For most of this season, he is perfectly fine working alongside the librarian, but all of a sudden flips out and tells them to stick to their role. At one moment he cares about humanity, but at other times, he seems overly cold. My favorite part of this show, though not the entire thing, is the moments of philosophy. Morpheus testing a human and seeing how they would feel about living forever, being kidnapped, and seeing how his absence affects the world. The interactions between different godlike beings. Morpheus learning to accept the free will of his creations. These moments were great. I loved the final talk between Morpheus and the Corinthian, where he has to admit how he failed him, and in a way, many of his other creations, creating the problem of nightmares escaping to the real world. Then Morpheus's judgment, taking away the dream of inflicting harm from the serial killers at the convention. But there is one other thing about this show I didn't really like, and that's Rose. She's not very deep or complex, yet she takes up a lot of screen time, since she is the MacGuffin the story is focusing on. To be fair, if she was a more dynamic character, then maybe she would work better, but as it stands, she's a very generic protagonist that I could have done without. And then there's the ending conflict. Dream and Rose. I won't go over every detail, but Dream must kill Rose because Unity, her great-grandmother, was originally supposed to be the vortex, before she fell into a deep sleep due to Dream's imprisonment. She dies instead of Rose by taking back the part of her that makes her the vortex. First, I will say, I didn't expect the twist that Rose and her brother would be children of the Endless. Does explain why she has the powers in the first place. The conflict again, just like the first half, just kind of ends. Unity comes out of nowhere, inside the library of the Dreaming, and finds out she was supposed to be the Vortex. So the Vortex was going to be her. Then Desire had a children with them, which made them the Vortex instead. Of course, the inner workings of the godly realms isn't supposed to be super straightforward, but I don't understand the vortex phenomena at all. It feels like it has no rules and just does whatever, which isn't a very satisfying plot point for a story at all. Overall, it just feels like the story elements that were really good didn't get anywhere near as much screen time as the ones that weren't as effective. The show is a very mixed bag, and while I'm excited at the idea of a season 2, I don't know if I can call this season good overall. The good parts were really up there, but the lows were near the other extreme. Also, I wasn't the biggest fan of Lucifer in this show, so the idea of season 2 involving her revenge against Dream isn't the most exciting plot point. I know Lucifer and Dream have a rivalry even before the events of this show, but I'm not so sure if her revenge plot has much to get behind. As it stands now, she is mad at Dream for beating her at the oldest game, which makes her motivations a bit petty, but maybe that's the point. If there is a season 2, I can only hope it will make it interesting. What did you think of The Sandman? If you've read the original, how does this work as an adaptation? Would you be interested in me making a follow-up video, comparing the two after I'm done reading it? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss my next video. I hope to see you next time.